Welcome to Challenge the Stats Patreon Edition. EDH Rec is built on the stats that make up the Commander format, but sometimes those stats might not represent what's best for a deck, and our patrons have some secret tech in their decks that they want to share with all of you. One card that they think sees too little play for their favorite commander, and one that perhaps sees too much. This week's challenge is brought to us by Flavor Police, our resident Kavu enthusiast, who has some tech to share for their Yasova Dragonclaw deck titled I Drink Your Milkshake. A very excellent There Will Be Blood reference, if I do say so myself. Challenge Stats is sponsored by Ultimate Guard, and for being featured in this video, we'll be sending John some Ultimate Guard swag, including Ultimate Guard's excellent Katana sleeves, which Joey, Matt, and I all use in our decks. Now let's get to the challenge. Yasova Dragonclaw costs 2 and a green for a legendary creature human warrior and is a 4/2. Yasova has trample and reads, at the beginning of combat on your turn, you can pay 1 Is It, and if you do, you gain control of target creature and opponent controls with power less than Yasova Dragonclaw's power until the end of turn. You untap that creature and it gains haste until the end of turn. Flavor Police writes, I have a dual over-under played Challenge the Stats submission that hopefully tickles some fancies. I have a non-bow that's being played and a suggestion for a direct replacement that does everything the commander wants a card in her deck to do, yet isn't even showing up on the page on EDH Rec. First up, Hazard's Favor shows up in 110 of the 1200 Yasova decks on EDH Rec, almost 8.5%. Going as high as 13% in the 237 decks you find in the Theft strategy. Hazard's Favor is a 3-man enchantment costing 2 and a red, and it says, at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may have target creature you control get +2/+0 and gain haste until the end of turn. If you do, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Flavor Police writes, while the 8 to 13% of decks currently running Hazard's Favor isn't exactly a majority, it should be down to 0%. The enchantment's effects don't benefit the deck at all because Favor's ability goes on the stack and needs legal targets at the same time as Yasova's. Clearly people want to pump and sacrifice temporarily stolen creatures, but the creature has to be under your control when you target it. It doesn't matter if you resolve Yasova's ability first. The creature wasn't a legal target when the ability went on the stack. You would need a lot of extra threat effects besides Yasova for Flavor to actually be useful. I've been playing her for years, and it's a letdown when new power and toughness amplifying cards trigger at the beginning of combat. And cards like Unnatural Growth or Xenagos God of Revels won't buff her before she needs to pick a target. Part of Yasova's strategy is often smashing people for commander damage, and cards like Unnatural Growth do facilitate that, even if they don't impact what creature Yasova can steal. Favor, on the other hand, kills your beaters at end of turn if you use it. Flavor Police continues. Enter a much better 3 CMC enchantment, Tavern Brawler. Tavern Brawler costs 2 and a red for a legendary enchantment background, and it reads, commander creatures you own have, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. This creature gets +X/+0 until the end of turn, where X is that card's mana value. You may play that card this turn. It buffs Yasova during the upkeep, improving her damage and theft strategies, and acts as a one-sided Howling Mind via the impulse draw. It does everything Yasova wants out of a card. The worst outcome is you flip a land, which you can still play, or you flip a card that is too expensive to cast, but makes Yasova huge for the turn, and usually capable of stealing anything on the board. Its impact has literally won me games every single time I've played it since putting it in the deck. I have no idea how it hasn't found its way into more Yasova decks, but it should be one of the top cards for the deck right now, and currently it's only showing up in 13 Yasova decks on EDH Rec. And as a note from me here, I'm also a huge fan of Tavern Brawler, and I'm an even bigger fan of it when it's replacing a card that's basically a non-bow in my lists. Great suggestions from Flavor Police. If you want to see even more cool tech, you can find Flavor Police's Yasova deck linked in the video description below at architect.com. And if you'd like to have your deck and secret tech featured here on Challenge the Stats, head over to patreon.com/EDHRecast to sign up. Thanks again for those suggestions, thanks for supporting the show, thanks to Ultimate Guard for sponsoring Challenge the Stats, and thank you for listening. And remember, EDH wreck your deck before you wreck your deck.